we really upset the girls this morning. They can't have their coffee.
No coffee? That's
because
too
we've got
bad.
too much hydro on.
That's too bad.
They'll blame you, though, instead of me.
Oh, yeah, well, put the blame on someone.
Well, you'll be gone and I have to stay here.
You get the coffee.
I may have to send out for it.
Yeah.
I was looking down on New Street the other day. You must have lived down near the old woodenware place.
Right across from the old woodenware place.
You know, they're still making washboards there, I understand, and step ladders.
Yeah, yeah.
In this day and age, to still be turning out washboards.
Well, I suppose they use a lot overseas, you know, in these different
places where they don't have electricity, I suppose.
I suppose, yeah.
What were they making when you went there?
Well, they were still making washboards, mostly step ladders.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the two main things, were step ladders and washboards.
That's where you raised your family?
Yeah.
On New Street?
Yeah, they were both raised on New Street. Yeah, they were both born in the old Memorial Hospital.
The one that's been torn down?
No.
A mass of wood?
Yeah, a mass of wood, yeah. Yeah, they were both born there.
A lot of changes.
Oh, yeah.
There's a fellow over on New Street's been having trouble lately filling up the ravine.
Oh, you mean Smithy?
You know him?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Is he inclined to get in trouble, or what?
Well,
he really made the news.
He made the news, but he's always been trouble with that ravine there.
That's it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of trouble with the ravine.
Well, I suppose we should get into what we came for. Let's just run over again where you enlisted.
Well, I enlisted in Manchester.
And you trained in... Initially,
I joined the King Liverpool Regiment, and I found that they were in training at a place called Blackpool in the north of England, which was a seaside resort, and I had a sister there that was with a boarding home. So I thought it'd be a nice place to start out my career as a soldier.
You thought it'd be a little softer there, did you? Easier?
Well, I figured, well, it'd be in a seaside place, it'd be a nice place to start out.
Yeah.
So that's why I was sent to Blackpool.
Was your basic training something like a vacation, or was it a little more tougher than that?
Well, no, it was mostly, you know, to join the army, you got physical exercise first.
Yeah.
And that's what we did most at Blackpool was, you know, parading on the parade ground and wait for the tide to go out, and then we'd go onto the sands and we'd do our training there, lots of route marches.
Is that so?
Yeah, mostly...
you marched out on the hard-packed sand?
Oh yeah, just as soon as the tide went out, we went down and did our forming fours and different exercises.
Right.
Yeah.
What possessed you to join up? I know there was a great lot of patriotic feeling.
The patriotic feeling at the time, but you know, the end of 1915, the regular British Army was pretty well, you know, they were pretty well depleted.
Yes.
They'd, you know,
tremendous losses.
Tremendous losses. At the end of 1915, there was a general by the name of Lord Kitchener. He decided that he'd form the Kitchener's Army.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there was a big response at the time to join Kitchener's Army, and of course I was pretty young at that time, and...
You were impressionable?
Pardon?
You were impressionable?
Oh, yeah. I knew that before long conscription had come along, and I figured, well, I didn't want to be conscripted. I'd sure go of my own free will and accord.
Then you have some choice of where you're going to end up, I guess.
Yeah. So,
didn't they have a great big poster at
that
time?
They had a great big poster of Lord Kitchener.
Pointing the finger?
And they had a finger, no matter how you looked at that finger, it was pointing at you.
Yes. He said something like, I want you, or...
I want you. Your king and country needs you. enlist now.
Yes.
And on the bottom was God Save the King.
Right?
And no matter how you looked at that poster, that finger was...
It was you that
It
he
was
wanted.
you, yeah. So that took the eye of a lot of people. It drew a lot of people in. Then there was another poster that was taking the eye. It was a father sitting in a chair. And he had his two small children at the foot, at the base of the chair. And one was looking up at his dad, and he says, "Dad, what did you do in the Great War?"
Ah,
Eh?
yeah.
Oh, there was two great recruiting posters there.
The one sort of shamed you into going, in a way. And the ladies used to have a tactic,
the
too, that
ladies
they employed.
There was always on to you why you're not in the army.
Yeah.
How is it you...
They would ask you, approach you right in the street.
you're shirker, you're a slacker, or...
Yeah. Didn't they hand out feathers if
Well,
you...
there used to be one or two that handed you a white feather. But,
indicating you were a coward at not being in.
You should be in the army.
Yes.
So
Well, those were pretty drastic measures that they used to get people in.
well,
Yet you probably would have gone anyhow.
eventually I'd
Yeah.
have gone, yeah. But with me being underage, it was...
You sneaked in.
Well, I lied about my age, and what they did was they took you in while he was underage. You took your king's shilling,
Yes. Pressed into your hand.
yeah, and then they gave you a khaki armband, and there was a crown on it.
Yes.
And during your civilian life, you wore that, and that took all the pressure off you, and nobody bothered you.
Mm-hmm.
But just as soon as you became 18, you was called to the colors.
It was automatic then.
Yeah, it was automatic. Right to the day you got the
That's
message to report.
because they had all the details on you. It was all
Yeah,
down.
you were right in the army, but you were still allowed into the civilian part.
Right.
You wasn't old enough. But just as soon as you became of age,
That, I remember you telling me about being in a wood, a devastated wood,
oh yeah.
which was,
yeah.
and I've been sort of picturing it in my mind
That'd be Polygon wood.
as a ghostly place.
Oh yeah.
The trees all
The trees just stood up,
stark.
you know, you could
The branches gone.
You can figure at one time there'd been a lovely forest there, and those trees just were standing there naked.
You had something of a dreadful experience there.
Well, right in the front line there, we were pretty quiet. It was in the morning. It was pretty quiet, and all of a sudden they started up with this big bombardment. The next thing I know, the poor souls, my buddies were just blown to pieces. There wasn't one left.
You were there as a platoon, were you?
With a platoon, yeah.
Yes.
And that bombing took the whole platoon. They just blown to bits. I don't know whether I was scared or what it was, but I just buried myself, lay down and buried myself.
Face in the mud.
Face right in the mud and the ground.
Yeah.
And I just kept repeating to myself, "Oh Lord, I don't want to die. I'm too young to die.
Yes.
I'm just too young, I don't want to die. Save me."
Right.
And I kept repeating it. Eventually, everything was quiet. I looked around, everything was so calm and
The whole
peaceful.
barrage had stopped.
It stopped, and
Yeah. Then it'd be deadly quiet,
it
wouldn't it?
was deadly quiet. You could just see those trees right now, just stark naked.
Mm-hmm. And you were alone.
I looked around, I couldn't see a soul. I lay there for quite a while, then I got up and started to walk back. I thought I'd better get towards my own lines. I lay myself down in the shell hole. I lay on the side and looking up at the sun, just thinking of how I could possibly get back to my own unit.
Mm-hmm.
I happened to look around and there was a bunch of German soldiers coming over a crest. Well, I thought, oh,
After all this,
here's
you're
where
going to be picked up.
here's where I'm finished. But it just happened that those Germans was prisoners being led over behind the line by two British soldiers, just two soldiers.
They wouldn't even hardly show up then in the group.
No problem at all. I suppose they were just pleased that we're taken prisoner and it was all over for them.
That sun would look pretty good to you when you looked up at it after that.
Well,
I suppose it all seemed unreal.
Just look up there and think, well,
as if it hadn't really happened at all.
How did I ever get out of it?
Yeah.
You look up at yourself and think, well, I made it.
Right. I remember you speaking of the time that you found advancement in the army, and they made you a machine gun.
Yeah, that's when they made me a Lewis gun, not a machine gun, a Lewis gun.
A Lewis gun,
yeah.
Which was a light machine gun.
Yeah, they sent me down for a course, and I took this course on the Lewis gun. It was a light air-cooled gun.
Right.
There was a lot of stoppages in it.
It had its problems. With dirt.
A lot of problems.
Dirt and mud.
Yeah. You'd only fire so many around and the gun would get so hot and it quit on you.
And they picked you up one day when you were a Lewis gunner. You were overrun, weren't you?
This was a place called Metron, and the Germans, when the Germans started to make a big push in 1918, when they pushed everyone back pretty nearly to Paris.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at that time, the trenches hadn't been made. They were just 6 foot, what they call blobs.
Mm-hmm. They were not continuous trenches.
They weren't continuous. They were just maybe 6 or 8 feet long.
Yes.
And I was a #1 Lewis gunner then at the time.
Yes.
I carried no rifle, just carried a service revolver. Was it Smith & Wesson, was it?
Or a Scott and Webley. Yeah.
However, but that's where we were when the Germans started to have the big push.
You were in a blob with your crew?
Yeah.
Which would be how many men?
It'd be eight, I think it was.
8 in a crew?
8 in the crew,
right.
Yeah, we had 8. I happened to look to the left. I see a German jump out of that blob like we was in, only further along. And
yes.
Had a potato machine. That was
hand grenade.
A potato machine in the German army was a kind of a hand grenade.
Yes.
Well, it was a good job that German was pretty bum thrower.
Oh, he threw it at you, did he?
But he missed the trench by quite a bit. Well, it wasn't long after that before we had a little talk between us. We knew we wasn't going to get out alive.
Right.
Well, we get out alive, but we all figured, well, when about time that we all said a little prayer together. Well, there were Catholics and Protestants.
Yes.
You know, they were mixed up.
Certainly brings everybody together at a time like that.
The Protestants, they did what they were supposed to do.
Yes.
We did what we were supposed to do. And then we just got out of that part of it and walked towards the German lines.
With your hands raised?
With our hands raised, yeah. There was no other choice but...
And you left your arms behind?
We left everything behind, yeah.
Yes.
But it was just in your mind whether you was going to make it to where the Germans was. But we made it. And I was never surprised in all my life to see so many Germans that was back there. The first thing one done was took my shoes off me. He gave me a pair of his German shoes, which wasn't like the...
There was a difference in quality, I take it.
A difference in the quality. And
yes.
And the next one took my service revolver, and we all went before the German officer for, for
Interrogation,
for
yes.
them. And after that, we were just let go.
Just milled about, did you, after that?
I was just milled about until they decided what they were going to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And did they ship you, did you go back to Germany?
No, I never got into Germany. I got shipped to a place called Lille.
So you were interned there?
Yeah.
That was in Belgium?
Yeah,
Belgium.
it was called a Kraftwagen park. They repaired all these wagons,
Mm-hmm.
one thing and another.
So what did you do with your time while you were interned?
Well, we did all railroad tracks up and put them down and cleaned up in general. And then there was a shoe repairing place in this Kraftwagen park, and they asked me whether I'd ever repaired shoes. So I thought, well, that would be a nice, soft, cushy job. I'll tell them yes.
Had you ever prepared?
No. Oh. They took me upstairs where all these Germans were repairing these shoes, and they gave me a pair of shoes, a sole to put on. There were no rivets at that time, they were all wooden plugs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those Germans got the greatest kick out of me trying to put that sole on. I never put sole on a pair of shoes in my life, and especially with wooden plugs. So
You weren't really their best workman.
I was the worst workman.
Did they keep you on? Or
Oh yeah, they kept me on.
Did they?
Eventually I put a sole on.
I see.
Yeah.
You did learn.
I did learn, yeah, but there was one old German there, he was quite a guy. You know, the German containers, it was all soup, they never got a real good...
Rations were a little slim right then.
Well, they were pretty slim, and what you got was all, I call them slops.
Yes?
But you know, that one German, he always saved me a little drop of soup at the finish. Of course, we didn't get so much. We just got so much to eat, and
Yes.
that was all. But
Do you suppose the German troops were faring much better than you as far as
I don't
food
think
goes?
so, no. I think right at the last, you know, it was the blockade, you know.
That was pretty...
Right at the end of the war, I could see it right behind the line that the German army was just about at it, you know. They wasn't getting anything to eat.
No.
And there was, the officers, they wouldn't take any notice of the officers. You could see that there was something happening.
Is that so?
Yeah.
The discipline was going.
The discipline was going in the German army, and I think it was on account of that they wasn't getting the food to eat, and I suppose the civilian population in Germany, they were just as bad off as the German, and in fact they'd be worse
I
off.
bet you they'd be worse.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Because they have to look after the troops. That was a priority.
Well, that was a priority, but the civilian population, they were, you know, the British put a blockade on right at the end of the war, you know, and
Yes.
that blockade, it hurt Germany quite a lot. And I do believe that was one of the chief factors in the war finishing quicker than people really thought it would, was the blockade.
Yeah. Well, we're into a special season right now. A few more days and it'll be Christmas.
Christmas.
You've celebrated a lot of them in Canada. You came here in, was it 1920?
22.
22.
Yeah.
Started with the railroad.
I started with our
You never mended any more shoes.
Oh, no, I remember arrived in St. Thomas there in 23. I got married in St. Thomas.
Yes.
And I was lucky when I left England. I had an address given me by people in England. I don't know whether I should give you their names or not. The first people I ever stayed with in
That was,
Mr. and Mrs. Johnson on Moore Street.
they were the people that had the old hardware store there?
Well, the son had the hardware store.
Oh.
He worked for the C&O.
Mm-hmm. I remember the hardware store, now torn down.
It was his father and mother that I knocked at the door and showed them this address, and they knew people where it came from, and they would just welcome me right into there.
So it was just mutual acquaintances?
Yeah, they took me right in and looked after me, and I'm a real Christian couple.
Well, we often wonder about the conditions in the trenches, and some of the fellows have told us of the mud and the trench foot and the problems.
Passchendaele, you know, the Canadians were there. They really took Passchendaele, but getting up to Passchendaele, the Menning Gate, it was just a mass of mud and human beings and mules and artillery, you know, the guns, all stuck in the mud.
Duck boards to walk on.
Once you got off that duck board and into the mud, or poor old mules, you know, you'd just see them kicking their legs trying to get out.
They were gone for then.
The more they kicked, the deeper they got in the mud.
Pretty grim situation to celebrate a Christmas in, or did you really celebrate Christmas in the trenches?
Well, it was just a 1 year that I was in the trenches in 1916. That was when I got wounded at Polygon at Bowman Hamel. And that was just a sea of mud there. That, you know, a lot of the soldiers just fell in shell holes that were full of water. They'd try and scramble out. And the more they scrambled out the side of the mud, you know, they'd just slither down.
So they'd drown in the shell hole?
They'd just slither down and drown.
What did the Army do for you that Christmas that you were in the trenches?
Well, the 1 year I was in the trenches, all we got was kind of a day's rest. It was kind of a truce just for 24 hours.
Was this unofficial, or had it been arranged somehow?
Well, I don't know how it had been arranged or anything, but the corporal just came up and told us that there'd be no firing on for
so
the
that's
24.
The first word you had of it? The corporal announced it?
The corporal announced it would be a 24-hour period where there'd be no firing.
And somebody on the other side was saying the same thing to the
Most
fellows
likely,
opposite you?
yeah, but there was no communication. You still had your 2 hours on and 4 hours off, you know, at your post. But, being prepared, you know, but it was just...
And there was not a shot?
Not a shot fired on my part of the line anyway on Christmas Day.
So you heard nothing?
I heard nothing, just as peaceful as Christmas Day should be.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
That all of a sudden they can stop their hostilities.
Yeah, just...
And the next day they're enemies again.
You could just go, start off where you'd finish.
Because normally you couldn't even stick your head up above the trench.
No, we had a periscope.
Yes.
And we had to stick the periscope up. You could look through this periscope and you could see practically everything that was going on in the German line.
Right. Now on Christmas, you could poke your head out. Or would you feel confident
No, I don't ever think I poked my head above the top of the train.
Even during the ceasefire, you
Even
didn't?
the ceasefire, it was just... Well, I'll tell you, it was just a matter of cleaning yourself up for the day, and it was quiet.
So it was just a rest?
Yeah.
And the Army cooks, had they prepared...
Well, the Army had, I suppose those in the reserve got a Christmas dinner, well, you know, but the Salvation Army, and then they got different parcels from home, different people, and...
Yes.
You know, they was pretty well done too, but those in the front line, it was pretty tough for them.
And your things were brought up to you in big...
Well, they were brought up at night, you know, everything got dark, and then they'd have a work party. And they'd have these big containers on the back with hot soup or anything like that. Then you had your rations, your tins of bully beef or McConaughey's, dinners and one thing like that.
What's McConaughey?
Well, it was a firm that made these different canned stuff, you know. And you had like a little Bunsen burner, you know, and you just lit this little Bunsen burner. You could heat the bottom of the can, you would puncture a hole in the top, you know.
This was a prepared meal
Prepared
of some
meal,
sort,
yeah,
in a can.
yeah, oh yeah.
You heat
Like-
and serve.
Just like beans and one thing like
Yes.
that, you know, pork and beans.
So McConaughey were the people that made it, and then they all
McConaughey,
got that name
Yeah,
stuck on them.
yeah, mechanic, yeah.
So you did this yourselves, right in the
Oh
trenches?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, we did our regular duty, 2 hours, you know, on and 4 hours off.
Where did you sleep? Did you have a dugout to go to?
No, we had, well, there were certain trenches that had dugouts, but well, I shouldn't say this, but I think the officers had the dugouts most of the time.
It's always been that way, hasn't it?
But there was always a little shelter dug into the side of the trench where you could,
Just a little shelf, I suppose.
just a little shelter, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you could get a little 40 winks once in a while, and sometimes we'd do 4 days in the front line, and then we'd be taken back to pretty always 4 days that we did in the front line.
You said you were taken back. I don't suppose they transported you. You meant you
no,
walked back.
You walked back, oh yeah, there was no way,
No transport.
no transport, you walked right back with a communication train.
Yes?
Yeah. If you got back, you got back. If you didn't, well, it was just too bad.
It was sort of up to you whether you could.
Yeah, there were lots of times when we had to carry someone that had been killed in the front line, we'd put him on a stretcher.
And take him back with you.
Well, we were, you know, if it was the working party came up, we'd say, well, we've got one body here that should go back, and they'd put him on a stretcher. But that poor body he'd be off the stretcher more than he would off.
Yeah.
He'd be off the duck. Once he got off the duck board, you could figure the poor guy, he was, you know, it was just a matter of putting the guy back on again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
but-
his cares were over. It was a matter of looking after the living then, wasn't it?
it was done. But it seemed a shame that all these thousands and thousands and thousands of lives, men was nothing.
No. And it was just to take a few more yards of mud by
If
the
you
sound of
didn't
it.
take a few yards of mud, even if you did take a few yards of mud, what good did it do? They'd take it back again, maybe in a week, and you maybe lost thousands of men
Yes.
over a few,
Yeah. And it had no value.
no value at all. And men were, well, no, I don't say most of the generals, but some of the generals, men didn't mean a thing to them. They'd just send them over in waves.
Yes. Well, I guess they were just numbers, weren't they?
Well, the more men they had, the more they figured they'd use.
Yes. Well, you wouldn't want to go through that again.
No, I don't think I'd care to go through it again, but I don't think we'll ever see a war. That was a war that went no wars.
Of course. Far from it.
But I don't think it had any, well, it may have had any effect. We're a lot better off today than we was in those days. Whether we appreciate it now, I don't know.
That's the thing, isn't it? Is whether we do appreciate
Whether
this.
we do appreciate what
we do
people,
have.
what those people died for. They
Yeah.
died for. Or whether we appreciate it today and the next war, I don't know. I think it won't need any soldiers.
Technicians.
Technicians
Yes.
and the poor civilians. You know, every war that comes along, more civilians are getting killed and
Yeah, they get involved.
they get involved, and then they've got this machinery that,
Yet you did your part at the time, and you thought
Well,
thought that you were doing the right
I
thing.
thought I was doing the right thing. And
Yeah. And thousands of
most
other young men thought the same thing.
They thought that I was lucky.
Yeah.
There were thousands and thousands that was unlucky.
But the country called.
The country called them and they went. Of course, conscription came in
Yeah.
at the finish.
We
and,
must push back the aggressor and
You've got to
save the motherland.
You've got to have king and country.
Yes.
But the Canadians, did a wonderful thing there at Passchendaele, Vimy Ridge.
They certainly rallied to the cause.
Oh yeah, they were a great help. And then of course, you know, the United States, they came in
Yes.
right at the last and
With their great resources.
great resources, and it was a big help. But
Were you ever near to Canadians, Canadian outfits in trenches near yours?
Oh yeah, I met lots of Canadians. Yeah.
You always fought as with your own unit.
Oh yeah, we were always with our own unit. The Canadian units was always together
Yes.
too, yeah.
But you would run across them.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And did they seem much different than the British troops? Or do you
no,
remember
no,
noticing
no,
that?
I don't see any different. The only thing we had against it was getting the downside a lot more money than we were getting.
So it was the affluence of the Canadians that irritated you.
Oh yeah.
They'd cut a wider swath on leave than you
yeah.
fellas would.
Well, I don't know whether they get a wider swath, but the difference in pay, boy.
Yeah.
They were well paid for, you know, at the time. You know, but the British soldier, it was pitiful the pay he got.
You weren't in it for the money, that's for sure.
Well, no, no.
And when it was all over, what did they do for you? They have a big parade?
Well,
Welcome home?
I got welcomed home. Lasted about 2 days, and after that, well, you was back to civvies again.
And what did civvies mean at that time?
Well, it was just on your own again.
Not much employment available?
No, I was lucky. I worked part-time for the fire department, but I didn't see much prospects there.
So that's when you decided to
I had
come to
a
this
brother.
country?
I had a brother that was in this country. I thought, well, I'll buy myself a ticket and take off to Canada and make myself a fortune.
What have you done with the fortune?
Oh, I don't know whether I got a fortune, but I've been lucky.
You haven't regretted the move,
I got
anyhow.
no regrets.
No.
I was never out of a job. I never worked. It wasn't.
Well, that contentment means more than
It's,
a big store in the bank, doesn't it?
There wasn't good jobs, but I worked, and
Yes.
I had the opportunity to work. I took the opportunity and worked, and I'm still around.
Obviously. Well, I think we're about the end here.